A good morning to everyone on the West Coast and a good afternoon to all of you joining us today from the Central and the East Coast time zones, and welcome to today's webinar. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping notes. All attendees today will be in listen-only mode throughout today's presentation, but as we progress through the material, please type any questions into the Zoho meeting platform using the Q&A button that you'll find just on the left-hand side of your screen. We will be reserving the last about 5 to 10 minutes of today's presentation for any questions. And likewise, should you have any challenges with audio or visual throughout today's presentation, please use that same Q&A box on that left-hand side, and we'll try to address as we go through. We anticipate today's presentation to be approximately 45 minutes long, and again, we'll save some time at the end for those questions. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Brock Martin. I'm the Director of Customer Success with Guard RFID. And joining me today are my colleagues, Carrie Brock, Marek Dukevich, Mendy Meyer, and Matt Lynch. And I'd like to go ahead and introduce them. Carrie is our President of Guard RFID and oversees all of our departments, including but not limited to sales and marketing, customer success, and implementation. She holds a 20-year record of demonstrated success driving sales growth while providing award-winning leadership in highly competitive markets. Marek is our Vice President of Technology and Product Strategy, and he leads our product management and technical support teams here at Guard RFID. In his 30-year career, Marek has held leadership positions in engineering and product management and user experience at very successful high-tech companies, including Sierra Wireless and Polycom. Mendy Meyer is our Director of Training and Implementation. She's been with Guard RFID for 6 years now and brings more than 20 years of clinical nursing experience as a registered nurse. Mendy was actually a ChalkGuard infant security system user in her last clinical position. In her role here at Guard RFID, she ensures smooth onboarding and clinical training for all of our clients. And lastly, Matt Lynch is a newer face to the Guard RFID team, but comes on board as our new marketing manager. Brings a wealth of digital marketing experience for us, and he is the one working hard behind the scenes today to bring you this webinar. So I'd like to thank you again for taking the time out of your day to join us. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Carrie.
Thanks, Brock. And again, thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to spend some time providing you with some valuable information and tips on how to use your RTLS systems, especially focused on the existing Guard customers and Guard channel partners. We're hoping that what you learned today is how to improve your efficiency through your RTLS system, increase your staff safety, provide better patient care, and maximize the investment that you've made in your technology systems in the hospital through integrations. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass it over to Mendy to get us started.
Thanks, Carrie. So to expand your current system to offer asset tracking, it's really easy. It's a good opportunity to improve your return on investment and to get the most out of your RTLS system. We know that lost and misplaced equipment causes decreased productivity, and nurses are not able to get to the bedside. They're spending about 10% of their time searching for equipment that's needed for patient care. Also, there's an added cost that it takes to replace these lost equipments. They can be very expensive, overwhelming to that hospital budget. So on an average, U.S. hospitals are spending about $400 per bed per year. And that translates to millions of dollars for hospitals. That is an added cost that we know can be prevented. When the staff can't find the equipment, patient safety is at risk. And these are our families, our friends, our loved ones that are not getting that immediate care that they deserve just because of something as simple as a lost piece of equipment. So we're able to offer a solution for these known problems by adding this asset tracking to your current infant protection system. You now can help increase the nurse time at the bedside. Also eliminate costs for replacing that equipment that may be lost, and it overall improves the overall patient safety. So it's a win-win for everybody. Next slide, Brock. So what you see here are examples of the two most commonly used asset tags. The AT4 tag is that blue tag at the top of those B Braun pumps. It is a small tag that's attached very easily. You can use double-sided tape or a keychain holder that you see here. And you can use these on even smaller devices as well. The asset tracking solution helps to show the location of the equipment. So it'll show on the floor plan, and the staff can then get to that equipment very quickly and easily. We also have a tamper-proof asset tag. So If you've got someone that removes a tag from a piece of equipment, we can actually show that it has been removed and you can get to it quickly. And you may have these used on high cost items throughout the hospital. The alarms can also be configured to sound when the equipment has entered or exited a certain field, or even if it's moved. So if you've got a device that's typically stationary and you know that it never moves, we can set those alarms up to sound when that device moves. On the right there, you see the IT tag. That's one of our larger asset tags, and it can be placed on things such as the bed that you see or larger machines that need to be tracked or accounted for. So we have a lot of different use cases with our asset tags. For example, some of our labor and deliveries are using these asset tags within their protected area to track certain equipment that they use, such as breast pumps, stethoscopes, fetal Dopplers, any types of equipment that they find leave their protected unit, and when they don't come back, they have to buy other equipment to replace that. So they're tracking different things. Another one of our hospitals uses the AT4 tags on pillows that they got. They got a grant for what we call breastfeeding pillows. They're also known as boppy pillows, and I believe they got about 50 of those. Well, what they found was these were getting stolen and they were being taken home at discharge with these patients. And so what they decided to do was they hid one of our AT4 tags in each of these pillows. And so then when that patient had it and left at discharge, the elevators would lock, the alarms would go off. And so that was saving them that lost pillow. So they were able to keep track of those and they weren't lost anymore. So you can see that you can use them in many different ways. And I will tell you, if you give a nurse a tag and ask them what they want to track and how they want to keep it safe, they're very creative. So they're going to come up with lots of different ways to put these tags on equipment or things that they're always looking for. Next, Brent. So this just gives you an overview of how that asset tag works within the system. It functions basically the same as the infant tags. The asset tags placed on equipment, just as you see there. The device or the reader will relay that tag information or that signal strength to the AllGuard server, and then the location of the tag is placed on the floor plan for you to see, and that's how they can locate them quickly. The tag exciters will be used to track those tags as they enter or exit secured areas, so you can have that set up as well. You see that it works really the same way that the infant protection solution works. It's just a different type of tag, and that's why it's so easy to expand your system by just adding a different tag type. So adding value to your investment, that AllGuard system already has that asset tracking feature built in. You can use it with simply adding tags. We'll talk a little bit more in a moment about adding integration into your patient records, which is going to help the nurse be at the bedside more. We're also going to help with less time searching for equipment and any kind of loss prevention of those items, just with adding this asset tracking feature to your system. And with that, I'm going to add it back over to Carrie.
Thanks, Mindy. So we're going to focus in on staff safety and staff duress systems for the next few minutes. We know that healthcare, working in healthcare is particularly challenging. This year has been incredibly challenging. We thank all the people working on the front lines for us. There is a global epidemic of violence against healthcare workers, and while 20% of the injuries, all workplace injuries, happen to healthcare workers, they actually suffer 50% of the assaults, and that's the statistic that's staggering. Not that anybody should be assaulted in their workplace, but this is particularly concerning. These assaults lead to, obviously, to absenteeism. They lead to PTSD in these healthcare workers. And they also open up hospitals to potential lawsuits for not protecting their employees properly. So we know that nurses in particular and the healthcare workers are at high risk. Pretty much all nurses will tell you that they've been verbally assaulted, but many of them have also been subjected to violent assaults. Both physical, sexual, they've been sworn at, yelled at, spit at, all kinds of things that are unacceptable in the workplace. This is going on globally. This is not just a North American or a US problem. And what's more concerning is they've been studying these statistics, and they've had an increase of 52% This is a statistic that takes us from 2014 to 2018, but there's nothing to indicate that this is actually on the decline at the moment. These incidences are unfortunately underreported. Many nurses are so caring that they just think it comes with the job or it's part of the job and the patient didn't mean it or they were distressed, and they tend to discard it even though they shouldn't have to. This is just one nurse, Lisa Tenney, sharing her experience. You wouldn't want this to occur to yourself or to your family members or spouse or friend. These situations are just continuous, and we'd like to be part of the solution here. We know that in particular areas, if you go to the next slide, Brock, that two departments are particularly dangerous. So we've seen a significant increase in requests for staffed arrest systems, and we recommend to a hospital, if they cannot afford to put a system throughout the entire facility, to at the very least start with the emergency department and inpatient psychiatric wards, behavioral health wards. Not only that, you'll want wandering patient in your psychiatric ward as well. Again, our system will allow you to have both of those functioning at the same time. But these are the two departments that are the highest risk areas for people working, especially emergency department. There's lots of people coming and going. It's hard to keep track of all the activity in that department in particular. So both OSHA and the Joint Commission are concerned, obviously, with these areas. So from OSHA's perspective, they have 5 building blocks for developing a workplace violence protection program. I'm going to just highlight number 3 and number 5. So number 3, they say providing staff with a duress system that allows the healthcare worker to push a button. You can also do things like have physical barriers, you can have other types of things to help, but really often the nurse or the healthcare worker is right at the bedside. There's no way to put them behind a barrier or to provide any protection. So really the only thing that can help them is that they can push a button, alert security, and have somebody come to their aid. Obviously, doing this with an RTLS system, this allows you to do this in real time. And then having the data collected, so that's number 5 about this record keeping. It's really important to, because these things are so underreported, when you get these duress calls, the RTLS system will keep that data, and you can go back and look at those records and see just how often are staff calling for help. And you could also track that by department and also look at what was the outcome of these things and how are you mitigating some of those risks in your facility. If you look at what the Joint Commission says, they also say the same thing, that a dedicated panic button that's wearable makes a tremendous difference. Having things like push buttons or pull cords, the problem is that the healthcare worker still has to get to that. You can't always guarantee that something's going to go wrong when you're standing beside that. So being able to wear it makes a huge difference, and perhaps that push of a button is going to get help quickly. It gives them some peace of mind, but also could potentially save lives as well. So we do agree with both OSHA and Joint Commission that something wearable is the best scenario here. This is just a graphic, an infographic on the AllGuard system. So as Mendy was mentioning about asset tracking, you have this staff duress functionality built into your existing TopGuard or AllGuard system. You just simply need to purchase a tag for your employees, and you can expand the coverage of your existing system. You don't have to buy additional software. So this is really helpful. I'm going to show you some of the tags that are available for your staff as well. So we have multiple choices. So the top 2 are just a simple push button. They can be worn like a Fitbit type device, just goes on the wrist. It can also be worn on a lanyard. It can also be worn on a key pull if they want to hook that onto their waist. The blue tag below that is our newest addition to the Guard offering. That is our new Wi-Fi staff duress tag. Also comes with a pull lanyard and 2 duress buttons on there. And then the one in the bottom right corner, that is our ST3. That is what we call our staff tag. It's got replaceable batteries. It also gives you, all of these tags will alert security. They can alert the co-workers at the nursing station. and that you can also have that duress alarm communicated to multiple people at the same time, and you can connect it to visual and audible alarms. So you have multiple notification options. So using the AllGuard interface, it's available on a desktop, a web, and a mobile client. These notifications can be paged out. They can be sent text over voice if hospital is still using two-way radios. They can email them. You can have integration into other alarm management, access control, and other security platforms, including video management. So we are seeing an increase in number of hospitals wanting to use video management, so they can, when a staff duress is activated, they can also record video if they have cameras in the vicinity. And then the most important thing is notifications can also be set to escalate. So you can set what the response time needs to be and then escalate those to other areas or other individuals in the hospital to come to the aid of the healthcare worker. And just to summarize some of the things that I've just mentioned, your system already has these features in. You simply need the tags. You're going to reduce your staff's stress, absenteeism. I think there's a real peace of mind here that help is on the way to them when they know they've been able to push that button. They can wear that, feel a bit more secure. And that also allows them to spend more time at the bedside and be perhaps more comfortable in some of those patient rooms or areas of the hospital. So with that, I am going to pass it on to Merrick now, and he can talk a little bit more about some of those integrations I mentioned.
Thank you, Kerry, and good evening, afternoon, morning to each of you. As we've been speaking about already, most healthcare, or in fact all healthcare systems, have multiple third-party systems, technology systems that are intended to make the job of their employees easier and their patient care better. However, there's often overlap between those systems, and they often don't play very nicely together. And as you'll see from reading the quote from a Gartner study on the left, a key initiative for the 2020s is to get systems to play together nicely and to work together nicely to deliver an elevated level of care to patients and reducing stress on employees. And that's certainly a key focus for Guard RFID as well. On this slide, I'll go quickly through a high-level view of the integrations, and then later on we'll get into a little bit more depth on 2 or 3 of them. So starting at the 12 o'clock point on this chart on the right there, the first one that makes life easy is patient records integration. So the idea here is that if a patient gets admitted into the hospital, they automatically get admitted into the AllGuard system. You don't have to have a nurse or a staff member spending time manually entering in first name, last name, health record number, etc., etc. The data can be directly transferred from your Cerner, Epic, Meditech health record system. Going over to the right, Mendy spoke about this a little bit earlier on, and in fact there was a picture of a B-Braun integration we've done. So this is where the equipment is tagged to, number one, track where the equipment is in the facility. We've also got some extensions that we worked on with the partners there, such that we can also tell things like whether it's in use, whether it needs servicing, whether its batteries are low. That type of information can be synchronized and alerts generated. Down the bottom right, this one's very important for our TOTGuard and wandering patient solutions, is access control integration. So with those solutions, the tag on the patient is intended to avoid having the patient either inadvertently or deliberately be taken outside of the facility. And having that neatly integrated with the access control system means that alerts can be generated to the security personnel through the access control system. Doesn't require them to run the TOTGuard application on their workstation, whereas the nursing staff can actually run the TOTGuard station, and you get the alerts transferred between the two of them. You also get automated locking of doors and unlocking on PIN codes, that type of thing. Down the bottom at the 6 o'clock angle, and Kerry referenced this one, video management system integration. Videos are a key part of any security system. Guard RFID is a key part of any security system. So having those two work together is important. And the type of integration there is that if an alert happens, you can actually have the video that's closest to that alert pop up in the AllGuard client so that you can actually see what's going on. And similarly, that alert information can be logged in the video management system so that if you need to go back and do some forensics to see what happened, you can actually have got those nicely synchronized without having to do a back and forth. What time was it in this system? What time it is in that system? Nurse call of ASCOM Vocera integration, I'm going to go into a bit more detail later on, so we'll leave that one for now. And then finally, we have alarm management, which, as you'll see from the number of vendors in there, is an extremely important part of any healthcare facility. Alarms go off way too often for unnecessary reasons, and reducing the amount of frustration that those alarms call, and making sure that the alarms only go to the people that are appropriately qualified to deal with the alarm and close enough to deal with the alarm, can reduce the frustration for people that don't need to know about the alarm or are too far away. Maybe they're on a break, they don't want to have their buzzers going off. So the alarm integration companies work together with Guard RFID to draw up a map of this alert should go to the 5 people closest to where the alert happened. Another type of alert may go to a different set of staff members. If we can go to the next slide, please, Brock. So all of us, I'm sure, have encountered the frustration of having to have multiple usernames and multiple passwords for different applications, or maybe it's the same username but a different password for each application. And which one did I remember? Oh, I've gone over 3 times entering it, now I have to reset it. The good news is there is a protocol, LDAP, a directory access protocol, that we implement such that the actual username, the person that's logging into the AllGuard system or the staff duress system, can use exactly the same login that they're using for their main applications at the hospital. The actual information is synchronized through LDAP. The administrator gets the benefit of being able to add and drop out users without having to ever see an AllGuard system. And the users get the benefit that they can use the same password across multiple applications. And even easier, in some cases, our customers have the case where they actually use their passcode to just actually sign in without having to actually enter any usernames and passwords. And Mendy, I think you have a couple of examples you can share with our attendees here on where this has seen some real benefit with our customers.
Yeah, I can just say from a nursing perspective, nurses, nursing staff, they have so many different applications to log into and so many different usernames and passwords. When we do this training and we teach the staff that we are doing LDAP integration and that they don't have to learn another username and password, they're so ecstatic that they are just so happy that this is there. So I think it's a win for the nursing staff, simply because they're not having to use another username and password to get into another system.
Thank you, Mendy. So to activate this on your system, it is a license. It's controlled by a license, and then there's a little bit of configuration that needs to be done within the configuration manager of the actual credentials for the Active Directory server that is typically used to manage the passwords. The next integration we'll talk about is, this is the HL7, I like to think of as an alphabet that's used for communication between different healthcare applications. That on top of that alphabet, there are a number of different languages. One of those languages that's referenced in the second sub-bullet here is ADT, Admit, Discharge, Transfer. This protocol is used for us to communicate to and from the healthcare record system, such that when a patient is entered into the central health record system, if appropriate, an entry is automatically created in the AllGuard or AllGuard system. So in the particular case of AllGuard, quite often when the mother is admitted or goes into labor, automatically a record is created for the baby that's due to be born. That record gets pushed into our application, such that when the baby is born and the tag needs to be placed on the baby, there's already a tag holder name, health record, etc. entered there, and it makes the job of putting that tag on much simpler than having to go in and enter a patient name, figure out what the health record number is, assign the tag. And again, Mendy, any particular examples you have to share here?
Yeah, we are using this a lot more. The HL7 is a very popular integration. And as Merrick said, it is just so nice because when that baby is born, the nursing staff are not having to go and manually type in that information. So it saves from any kind of errors by the transcription of the medical record. It already populates there, and it saves time because it's there. All they have to do is assign the tag to the patient. And the nice thing is it is admission, it transfers. So if the patient moves from one unit to another, that is going to be updated in the system, and then also with discharge. So it will activate at the discharge. So it really is a helpful piece to aid in what the nursing staff are doing with the system.
Thank you, Mendy. Again, this is a license that you would purchase from Guard RFID to activate the feature, and then there is some configuration needed, both here as well as in the health record system. You need to have some way of identifying which patients are relevant to actually be imported into our system. We have had people just import the whole patient list in there, but that can be several thousand entries, whereas only a few tens of those are relevant. So there's a little bit of configuration needed by the IT people just to set some sort of rules. The type of thing that people do is, you know, patients that are under 2 years or something like that might fall into here, but you don't want to be bringing everybody into. So just a word of caution. The next thing we're going to look at is nurse call system integration. And if you go through to the next one, please, Brock. So this is a picture of a typical ward within a hospital, or maybe it's a small medical facility. The healthcare facility has deployed a Guard RFID system. Maybe this is a labor and delivery ward. Maybe it's an emergency department that has the staff duress system deployed. They also have a system from a partner such as ASCOM or Vocera, which helps with the way that their staff are informed and deal with alerts, alarms, calls from patient beds, etc., etc. So with those two systems in place, often they're just used as complementary systems, and you can get some benefits out of the two of them separately. However, if you do some integration work with them, you can get some extra use cases served, and I'm going to give you an example of one of those. So in this case, as I mentioned, each staff member is wearing or carrying a staff tag with them that helps the system know where the staff members are throughout the facility. In the patient room, the patients have some way of calling for help. Typically, that's a bedside pull cord. If you wanted a more fully featured, if your patients are using Guard RFID tags, you can actually give them that little PT3 tag we mentioned earlier, which has a push button on it, such that when the patient needs some assistance, they can call for alert through one of these two mechanisms. The system then knows which room that alert has come from, and it can use some intelligence to figure out which staff members are close by and which staff members could deal with that alert. That alert is then sent through the ASCOM or Vocera system, typically to a mobile device that the staff member is using or wearing. That tells them that there's an alert in room 123. The appropriate staff member can go to attend to that. If you go to the next slide, please, Brock. So when the first staff member gets there, opens the door to go in COVID times, this is probably more of an issue than it used to be 12 or 24 months ago, because that staff member may well have had to get all geared up in PPE equipment before opening that door. So we don't want 3 or 4 people trying to gear up in PPE equipment. So as soon as that person gets inside the room, the system knows, based on the location information from the tag that they were using, that somebody has entered the room, and that actually lights up a dome light that is installed above the door, a blue dome light. It also cancels the alarm notification to the people that hadn't yet responded. The caregiver is now at the bedside, the door is closed, the blue light is on, which indicates to everybody that somebody is in there attending to the patient. When they eventually have cleared it and leave, the blue light can go off and everything goes back to normal. So we get a nice integration whereby that nurse call system in some cases may have had 3 people responding, or people were having to do special messages through voice saying, I'm now responding, can you clear the alarm? A lot of manual steps are removed. And if you go to the next slide, please, Brock. A lot of manual steps are removed. We get a less number of alarms going to particular individuals, less time wasted responding to alarms, and ultimately allowing people, staff, healthcare givers, to actually spend more time giving care to people and less time running around to deal with things that may not have needed to be dealt with. Less frustration, happier staff, happier patients. And with that, it's back to you, Mendy.
Thanks, Merrick. So talking about being at the bedside more kind of moves into this mobile and web ready applications. So a nice feature that we have now is our web application. So you can use this on workstations on wheels, computers on wheels, and a lot of these hospitals have these devices, these computers that they're pushing down through the hallways into the patient rooms. With our web app, you can have our system on that web app and they can access it right there at the bedside. So it's keeping them at the bedside. It's keeping them charting in real time. They're actually able to access assigning a tag, discharging a tag, the different functions that they need, or maybe locating something that they're looking for. We also have the mobile app that's available for Android and iOS phones and tablets. And so this is another nice feature because you can have our application on those devices, go into a room, walk down the hall, pull that out, find what it is you're looking for, or see what alarm is going off and whether you need to go to that area. So these mobile and web applications are saving time and energy for the clinical staff. They're no longer having to go back up to the nurse's station or use a phone and call for someone to do something for them. They can do it right there in real time. And it also is going to reduce errors, so they're not having to write things down and double chart it or tell someone to chart it for them. They're able to do it right there on that mobile app or that web app. So that's something that we have found is very useful. And the facilities that have implemented this have been very happy that they're able to do stuff at the bedside more than going back and forth to the nurse's station. So we do have key differentiators in healthcare. We are on a single platform, so multiple use cases can be used, and we do know about the infant security. We have a wandering patient that can be incorporated. Today you learned most about the asset tracking and the staff duress. So those are some of the use cases that are there. Multiple RTLS technology. So right now we're using the 433 megahertz active RFID, and we're also incorporating some Wi-Fi. So coming in the future, you're going to notice some Wi-Fi that's coming, and more of that will be available. Enterprise deployment. So multiple facilities can come from a single service deployment. So we do have facilities already that are using this. They may have several different facilities within a corporation, and they're all using our enterprise deployment. Benefits are common user interface and IT infrastructure. So that's a little bit of a differentiator within our healthcare realm. Next slide. These are other differentiators. So we do have that broad portfolio and smallest and lightest tags in the industry. So if you're familiar with our tag types, we have a lot to choose from, and that's one of our best selling features. Some of these tag types go on the wrist or the ankle. Some are going to go on the umbilical cord of these newborns. We have cut band tag types. We also have light and heat tamper detecting tags. So we have such a large variety that you can choose what works for your population, or maybe you're going to use several of those tag types. The AT4 asset tag is 14% the weight and 20% the volume of the popular competitors. So it is very small. It can be hidden away on that equipment, so you can't see that you're tracking that equipment. And it's nice. You can see there at that picture how thin it is, fits with a double-sided tape if you want to tape it underneath something and kind of hide it away, so it's easy to secure that. And also we have those tamper type asset tags. So if you've got tags that you want to stay on or know when they're taking off those equipment pieces, we can definitely have that for you as well. So it's easy to expand your current system solution to not only offer that infant protection, but also have that asset tracking or that staff to rest that's already built in there. So ask yourself, why is it that why not get the most out of your RTLS system? And what you can do by doing that is just start using the solutions that are already there for you. And we're happy to help you get that set up. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brock for questions.
Fantastic. Well, great timing. Thank you, Mindy. Perfect amount of time. So we've wanted to a lot about the last 10 minutes, as I mentioned off the top there, for any questions. And I do see a few that have come into the presentation that we'll address here. But for those that haven't had an opportunity to go ahead and put their questions in, just a reminder, in that left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a Q&A box. So go ahead and type those in there, and we'll try and address as many as we can as we go through. And if we're not able to, we'll certainly follow up individually. So I'll just start here and go through some of these. So Merrick, one of the first ones that had come in was asking just about integrations. You showed the slide of all the available ones. What if one was not on the list, and this person is specifically asking about a Vigilon?
Thanks, Brock. Yeah, so the way that we work on integrations is that we have a part of our engineering team that's assigned to integration work, and we look at the requests coming in from customers. The larger the deal, the more priority it gets, and we have bandwidth to roughly add one integration per quarter. So we have a list of integrations that we would like to work on, and we assess them and then work on them as they come along. We also have to spend some time updating existing integrations because APIs change, so that also gets into the mix. Vigilon specifically actually was the most recent one that has been implemented. It was actually released in our 6.6.0 release last month. We haven't yet got a Vigilon onto that list there because I typically like to have one real live customer active before I can tick the box that the integration is fully done. That's often that customer tends to be the one that finds some of the things we didn't know. We typically give them a free license to encourage that sort of customer to take advantage of it. So if that questioner has any particular customers in mind, we'd love to welcome them to the table and have them help us prove out the solution. So once we've decided which one to do, as I mentioned, the development team does its work. We then get the integration work agreed with the partner. In some cases, partners have a specific partner program we register through, but more often than not, it's more of I get a contact with a product manager on that side. We get our marketing teams together to promote the solution and document the solution. Back to you, Brock.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks, Merrick. And we can certainly follow up on that one as well for the question on a Vigilon and make sure that you have all the answers. Mindy, there's a question here surrounding kind of clinical workflow for the staff tags, and someone's asking, how are they assigned, and do each kind of clinical staff members need to have their own tag? Do you have any best practices?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with the staff tags, we find that it really depends on the workflow and the facility type. So sometimes what we find happens is they will purchase a staff tag for every one of their staff members. We will help them assign those staff tags to each staff member, and then that tag is theirs to keep. So they come to work, they go home, they don't have to turn their staff tag in. It just picks them up once they come into the building for work. Some other facilities want to only purchase the number of staff tags that they would maybe have on that unit for that particular shift, and so in that case, they are assigning a staff tag to themselves each shift. So we'll help them set up. They'll assign themselves a staff tag, and then when they leave for that shift, all that they have to do is unassign that tag. They're not going to delete their name. It's going to stay in the system. So when they come back the next shift, their name is still there. They're just going to assign that staff tag or another staff tag back to them that day. So there's different ways that we can work to assign staff tags, and it really is based on how they want to use the staff tag and how many they want to purchase.
That's great. Thank you very much. Yeah, some good best practices. Carrie, maybe I'll ask you this one. Getting a question on how easy is it to put in HL7 and LDAP? I know Merrick kind of touched on this, but they're asking, does it require someone to come on site to actually set that up?
No, you can just simply get in touch with us at sales@guardrfid.com, and somebody from the implementation and training team will take care of setting that up for you remotely and giving you any documentation that you need on it. And sales can provide you with a quote for setting that up. So
Okay.
good question. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, another one, maybe I'll ask you this one, Carrie, for the computer on wheels that Mindy was kind of talking about, same thing for the licensing on the mobile and the client. Where can they get the more information, and how easy is that to get set up?
Again, I'd go through sales or your channel partner, and we can provide the pricing for that. And again, the training team, Mindy's team, will get that set up for you.
Okay, great. Merrick, maybe this would be one that you can touch on. We showed the variety of the tags, and someone is asking specifically for the staff tag for the battery life, but maybe if you wouldn't mind just on the staff tag, Mindy had shown the IT2, the other asset tag. Maybe you could just go over the battery life on those.
Absolutely. A common question and a common challenge with running in the RTLS system is that the technology is an active technology, needs a battery to keep the tags operating and sending out the signals, and batteries don't last forever. So we have a general design guideline that every single tag should last at least 1 year. So a tag will, all of our tags, our patient tags, our staff tags, our asset tags will last at least 1 year. There are a couple of exceptions. We've got some smaller, lighter, cheaper umbilical tags that actually are only 3 months, but I think that's the only exception. However, a year is still fairly short if you're having to replace 200 pieces of equipment when the batteries are going flat once a year. That's almost one battery being replaced, or one tag being replaced every 2 days. So what we do is that when the tags aren't actually moving, they go into a lower power mode and they don't report as often, and that helps to elongate the battery life, typically to more like 2 or 3 years. So the asset tags, those blue ones that you saw earlier, will get 2 to 3 years of battery life. They then do have to be replaced at that point. The batteries are actually not replaceable. The IT2 tag, the big black one that you saw on the bed in one of those pictures, it'll last up to 6 years actually, depending on the use case. So you can get it, it's bigger, has a bigger battery. Staff tags are quite often actually handed in on a shift basis, or it's a little easier to get at them. And to avoid having to replace the whole tag, the 2 staff tags that you saw, the one that works with our 433 megahertz system, uses standard watch battery cells, so those can be replaced by the user. So it may last a year, and then you flip open the lid, put new batteries in, and you keep going. And then the new ST4 tag that we have coming out actually lays down into a tray and uses inductive wireless charging, somewhat similar to the technology in cell phones, so that you just lay it on the tray and it'll recharge itself, and then you can keep using it again without having to get a new unit. So a long answer to a short question, but an important question. So
quick range. No, that's great. Thank you for going over that. I'm just taking a look through. Looks like we just got one more in here. Maybe I'll ask Carrie this one. So someone's had infant security for a number of years, a long-term user. So how difficult to launch duress or to add in that asset tracking, as you guys were talking about?
So if you want to use it just within that particular ward, it's just simply buying the tags. All the infrastructure is the same and your software is the same. If you want to expand it from the labor and delivery ward and beyond, then you need the infrastructure and the tags. But software platform's the same, as Mindy mentioned. All the features are already in the system. They just need the tags to complement it.
Great, thank you. And I'll do one more, and then we'll go ahead just for time. So, Merrick, you just mentioned the ST4, and I know Mindy had kind of made on Wi-Fi. Do you want to elaborate just quickly on that point?
Yeah, I think we'll be having a future webinar on this topic in general, but there are a number of different RTLS technologies available. Our historical products have used 433 megahertz active RFID, which has a number of advantages over other technologies, but it does have one drawback, that you have to put in dedicated infrastructure throughout your facility. And that's typically justified for things like tot guard and staff duress, but may not be justified with an ROI for an asset tracking solution. In that case, there is an alternate technology that some of our competitors offer today, and we will be adding shortly, which is to utilize the Wi-Fi infrastructure for the RTLS location. So with that ST4 tag that we illustrated earlier on works with that infrastructure, and our server works with that infrastructure too, and we'll be adding an asset tag coming up as well. So stay tuned. That's an important area of investment for us in 2021, and we'd love to bring our channel partners along to help us roll that solution out.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much, Merrick, and good to see. We'll see more of that coming up. Like I said, just looking at time, we're right at 10:45, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. If we didn't get a chance to get to your question, we will follow up individually there with you. But the last slide I'll just put up is, as Carrie kind of mentioned, any of those questions, sales at Guard RFID is the best way to go ahead and reach out to us. We will have a posting of this webinar today up on the website in the next couple of days, and we'll kind of communicate that out as well. But otherwise, I want to, on behalf of everyone today, thank you again for attending, and please reach out with any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.